How do? My name is Andrew Hancock and I am a VMware technical architect from Yorkshire in the United Kingdom. I have worked with VMware since their birth in 1998. So that's been a quarter of a century now. I've been working with the VMware product catalogue. Some of my close friends say if you cut Andy in half, it reads VMware like a stick of rock from Blackpool Pleasure Beach. I have now written over 130 articles and recorded over 30 hours of VMware vSphere 7 and 8 videos for Experts Exchange, and received 40 Expert Exchange awards over the last 11 years working with the Expert Exchange community. I am currently the overall #1 point earner in the Hall of Fame. I am honoured to have been accepted into the VMware vExpert program since 2011, and I'm currently a VMware vExpert Pro for the last 4 years. And welcome back to another episode of Hancock's VMware Half Hour. Now, I must apologise at the start. I've actually got Sylvie in the office with me here, and they do actually say don't work with animals, and she's sort of kind of running around pulling cables and chewing on cables and things. So if I have to rush off and grab a cat, or she starts actually basically moaning, then I do apologise. Anyway, so in today's video, which is going to be fairly short, so stick with me. Don't think it's going to be 30 minutes. I think we're probably going to be about 10 or 15 minutes. What I wanted to show you today, if you've been following this series, and today we're back in the vSphere 8 lab, which consists of our 2 HPE ProLine microservers, which, remember, of course, these are not on the hardware compatibility list, so we've had to almost sort of kind of crowbar 8.0 vSphere 8.0 onto these 2 servers, and it's almost 12 months. In part 3 I actually showed you how to install and configure VMware vSphere Hypervisor 8, which was 8.0 GA or IA at the time, and that was done about 12 months ago, back in November 2022. Well, certainly last month, eventually, VMware released 8.0 event U2 of the product. So it's really actually time to upgrade these 2 hosts in our lab to 8.0 U2, which, if I just look at my handy reminder, that's build 2238049. Which is 8.0 U2. Now, one of the reasons I actually wanted to do 8.0 U2 is, sadly, there's another requirement that has crept into 8.0 U2, which requires the use of the ESXi CPU instruction. And that was an Intel CPU instruction that appeared in later generations of the CPU, which are Sandy Bridge and later. So sadly, if you have a CPU which is earlier than the Sandy Bridge, then I'm afraid that its day is now numbered, and you're not going to be able to go beyond 8.0 U1, because you will find that U2 is not supported. I'm a little bit saddened by this, really, because there are a lot of us out there that are using home labs that don't have modern processors. There are some of us that do have servers with modern processors, so it is going to exclude a lot of people with home labs that, after good 10 years of using old hardware, now if you want to use 8.0 U2 and later, I'm afraid that you're going to have to change your hardware. So I feel saddened about that. But at the same time, things are moving on. I've been involved with VMware vSphere now for a quarter of a century, and we can't expect VMware to continue to support older processors forever. So I was really keen to see whether or not that these old Gen 8s I've got, these HPE microserver Gen 8s, they have E3 1265L, which is a Sandy Bridge processor. So I was keen to see whether or not that I'm still going to get these you're still going to get use for these in the home lab. You know, they are very handy because they are small servers. They are very low power. They don't use a lot of electric. They do basically put out an awful lot of heat, but they don't use a lot of electric, and they're very quiet. And I'm just keeping an eye on Sylvie that's jumping around in the background here. Yeah, okay, I'll ignore that. My apologies if you're hearing thumps in the background here. So without further ado, I'm going to go through, you know, you can follow this process exactly for any version really of ESXi, and certainly any version of ESXi 8 if you want to go to U1 or you want to go to U2. So just remember that if you basically have an earlier processor than the Sandy Bridge, you're not going to be able to go to 8.0 U2, so stick at U1. And there was a question that actually came up on Experts Exchange recently as well about the use of the SDK or ESXCLI for Perl or Python, which you can obviously use on Linux or you can use on Windows. So I thought, okay, wouldn't it be a great idea if I sort of kind of leverage that in as well? So I'm not going to go to the console on this. So I'm just going to basically show you a couple of tweaks that we need to make. Again, as I sort of kind of mentioned, that, you know, we had to almost crowbar vSphere 8 onto these particular servers because if we actually tried to install them without using a flag or a variable, allow legacy CPU equals true, and I'll drop this in the description, you're going to get a horrible message on installation that basically turns around and tells you, sorry, no can do because your CPUs are not supported. So if you do the whole Shift and O and allow, and basically type allow legacy CPU equals true on the kernel options on boot up and hit enter, then you can basically go through and you can do the installation. However, what comes back and bites you in the ass is that when you actually try to complete an upgrade using ESXCLI, it'll come back basically and turn around and tell you that it can't do it. And that's because you've got to modify, I'll just drop back to the console here. You've got to modify the bootbank boot.cfg and add as a kernel option, allow legacy CPU equals true. But don't forget to also do the alternative bootbank as well, alt bootbank, and modify that boot dot and also drop in allow legacy CPU equals true. Once you've actually done those changes and you've restarted the server, then you will be able to perform an upgrade using ESXCLI like we've done previously. If you've been watching these videos before, you will know that I like to tail the ESX update log so I can actually basically see what's happening. And I'm now actually going to show you, so we're just going to go back to our web GUI connected to our ESXi host client, which is currently running 8.00. Doesn't actually show us the build when we're connected directly using the host client. But what I am going to do, I've got a little batch file here that I've created somewhere in my desktop, my Experts Exchange. And this actually basically calls the ESXCLI commands, which are driven by Python. So I've got active Python installed on this Windows desktop. So I'm just going to click this batch file, and this is actually basically going to start. You may have noticed there in the background here that actually basically put it into maintenance mode. So if we just do a little refresh here, you can see already that we've gone into maintenance mode. The batch file is still running, but if I'm just going to flick now to the tailing of the log, then you can actually basically start to see that the ESXi process is started to happen. So if I didn't have SSH enabled on this particular host, then we can actually basically do remote management of our single host using ESXCLI on Windows or Linux, so we don't have to basically be at the console. So I'm just going to basically bob off, and I'm going to let Sylvie out. I'll keep this recording. Hello. I'll come back in post. Apologies. I'm going to let her out. I'm going to come back in post. I'll speed all this up, and hopefully this is actually basically going to update. But I just actually realised it's not, because there's a command that I've been wanting to use, or a flag or a variable that I've been wanting to use on the syntax of ESXCLI for a while now, and I've never ever got around to doing it. And that's, you can actually specify --dry -run, and I'll put all this in the description, which is a bit like the dry run command on Power CLI, or the what if command on Power CLI, so that it doesn't actually basically do any changes, but it shows you what changes it's actually going to do. So in this batch file that I've constructed, the first pass is just actually basically doing an update dry run. Then I pause, and then the second is actually going to do the upgrade. So I'm going to let this run, and I'll come back. We'll speed this up in post, and then hopefully when we come back, the update will be done. Dry run will be done, and then we'll kick off the update, and we'll let that run again, and then we'll restart the server, and we'll basically come back to a freshly updated 8.0 YouTube. So I'll come back shortly. So what I wanted to show you here, why I've just basically come back, is I wanted to show you the update results by running dry run only. So dry run only, host not changed. The following installers will be applied to boot bank and the locker installer. These are the VIBs that will be installed. These will be the VIBs that are removed, and these are the VIBs basically that will be skipped. So just wanted to show you that there is an option if you're a little bit concerned about what the installer or the upgrade is going to do. Then you can basically run the --dry -run to see what happens. A bit like the what if command, I think it's what if, on Power CLI, when you basically don't want it to actually do those actions, but you want to test to see what could happen but not be applied. So now I'm going to basically press any key. It's going to run exactly the same command again, but this time it's got dry run omitted, and it does actually basically have the no hardware warning specified as well. So I'm not going to get a message basically telling me that this particular server is out of support and it's not going to apply. So when I hit enter here, we should actually basically start to see that the tailing the ESX update log here is actually going to start to change. So if I basically just hit enter there, and it's going to go off, and it's actually going to start doing that. So again, I'll speed all this up in post, and I'll come back to you shortly. And I'm back. Okay, well, you may have noticed as the batch file basically just scrolled at the screen and exited because I didn't put a pause on the end, but it did complete. And if we actually basically have a little look at the tailing of the logs here, completed ESXCLI output going to ESXi-software. So the update has been completed successfully. So all there is for me to do is just basically to restart that server, which I can do through ILO that I have here, integrated lights out on HPE, or iDRAC on Dell. So I'm just going to disappear and come back and show you that I can still basically log in to ESXi 001, and it's been updated to 8.0 U2. So I'll be back shortly. Okay, I'm back. I just wanted to basically just come back and see the grey over yellow screen as the server boots up, and we're running 22380.479, which is 8.0 U2. So the upgrade is completed successfully. I'll also put a couple of these URLs in the link by William Lamb. Home lab considerations for vSphere 8, and he's followed that up recently with a ESXi 8.0 update 2 require process support for the Xsave instruction, which is here, and I think he has the same sort of kind of sadness. Yeah, he says it here at the end here. Sympathetic in prolonging hardware for home lab use cases, especially what looks to be functional hardware. He does also go on to say that he thinks that probably refresh is needed if you're trying to use a CPU that is more than a decade old. Increasing costs, increasing servers to keep home labs up and running. However, of course, is nested, are nested labs the future? There are a lot more people, certainly in the vExpert community. I think that there is now a bigger swing now, I think, to basically using nested hardware, because we all have lives. We don't want the noise, we want to reduce electricity, and there's some great things in some small factor servers now, with high memory counts and high storage counts as well. We've now booted, so I should be able to basically just sort of kind of refresh and log back in again, just to prove that that isn't going to work. We can log back into our host, and basically the version is now 8.0 update 2. Okay, so takeaways from this: you can use this method of ESXCLI at the console, where you would traditionally log in and run the ESXi CLI update commands at the console, which I've showed you previously, or like we've done today, you can actually basically use the magic of Python on Windows or Linux, and you can run the ESXi CLI developer kit from that to do your updates. I'll post links to where you can download that from. Thanks to the expert that actually posted that question as to did he need to have or download the ESXi CLI for Python. Thanks for that. That gave me an idea to use that for this video. Thumbs up this video. If you basically have a particular topic that you want to see covered, then please ask me. We'll have a little look at the request, and we'll reconfigure the lab here to do whatever you need me to do. Again, thank you very much for watching, and come back soon, and we'll have a little think about what we can do in our 8.0 lab to sort of kind of get it to the same place we are with 7.0, which at the moment, of course, is running a vSAN environment. So have to have a little think about what network cards we can get in here and what changes we need to make to get vSAN running on 8.0 here. Anyway, so okay, thank you very much. I've gone on enough. I think the video will probably just be about 30 minutes by the time that we've sped it up. so it's not too long. And again, you know, one of the other takeaways is that if you have got older hardware that is earlier than a Sandy Bridge, then sadly you are not going to be able to join us on this journey to 8.0 update 2. You're going to have a little look at changing your hardware that uses later generation processors. So once again, all the best, thank you, and goodbye.